Hi, you guys. We're back. It's been a minute. I think this is the longest, let's call it a pause, that I've taken ever in 8 years on YouTube. So thank you for bearing with me. All for positive reasons. Nothing serious to report other than lots of changes happening at my business Beyond Body Coaching. I have hired 3 people in the last couple of months. An admin and content manager who is saving me from editing and scheduling and all that sort of stuff. That's Sarah. And Shelby, who is one of my coaches in LA, who's unreal, specializes in under 18s up to 25, likes working with all demographics, but that's her specialty. She's unreal as well. And then Alex, who's recently come on board from London, who is going to be starting with us in about a month or so. So you'll be getting to know all of them as we share more of their insights and their experiences. It's just been a hectic but incredibly exciting full circle time. It's bananas. But today we're back to do a video and I feel so good to be back. I have been uploading over on my podcast Beyond Body, so if you haven't checked that out, go and check out the podcast episodes which are up, especially the last couple of ones which have been about body image in support of the Butterfly Foundation and their mid-year campaign, which I was very honored to be a part of, all about changing the picture for young people with body image dissatisfaction of all ages really, but really wanting to, save that young generation from a lot of the stuff I went through and too many people go through. So today we're going to be talking about something a bit controversial, because would it be a What Mia Did Next return video if it wasn't a smidge controversial? We're going to be talking about the idea that you can always go back to your eating disorder, right? So I've got some views on this, which might not be totally expected. Before we get into that, I am running my Conquer Your Eating Disorder Voice workshop again. I took a pause on it for a couple of months while I was a bit busy, but ran it for 3 months in a row and it sold out each time. Still hear from past attendees. Some of them are now in my group coaching and as clients who tell me it was life-changing, not just for their recovery, but just their life in general. And they still catch up and they're in Facebook groups together. So it's unreal. So it's all about the most effective recovery tools to actively, practically, effectively, and directly challenge and silence your eating disorder thoughts. Stuff that worked for me, but most importantly, the things that I work through with clients that have proved effective and got clients of my own to full recovery time and time again. And the skills that they have told me were the most powerful. So it starts, just to fact check myself, it starts on the 28th of June and finishes up on the 20th of July. It's a 3-week workshop, a Zoom call with me and other attendees every single week. New, fresh, personalized workbooks that I've poured my heart and soul into every single week, and access to a private forum every day with feedback from me for all of you and interacting with all of you every day, along with an hour presentation which kicks us off. So head to the description box below where you'll find a link to get your tickets. A bunch of them have already gone. I've gotten in trouble before when I've told people about the workshop and then been like, by the way, they're now all sold out since I made the video. So make sure you jump over there to get the last of those. And with all of that done, I think I did pretty well to cram that whole where the hell have I been and update into a couple of minutes. But today I wanted to talk about this because it's something I see pop up in recovery community spaces, and particularly in how people talk about how this was communicated to them in a treatment sense. So what we're talking about is the sentiment that you can always go back to your eating disorder, particularly as you're moving through recovery. That it's okay, you can take steps in recovery and move forward in recovery because you can always go back to your eating disorder. So I use this advice with clients. That's why I told you might be surprised, because of course I believe in full recovery. I am fully recovered. That's a really big part of the work I do, is asking people to keep that possibility on the table. They don't have to fully believe it, but just to keep their mind open to it, because you can't get there if you don't think it's possible, or you just close your mind off to the idea of it being possible at all. So it might surprise people to know that I will often impart that advice to clients, that they can always go back to their eating disorder. I'll get into why I use that advice in a minute, but first I want to cover why I think that it can be a damaging, unhelpful, demotivating, disempowering piece of advice when used in the wrong context. So I think that if it's coming from a treatment perspective, which reinforces the idea that remission is the only possible outcome with recovery, which is a really dominant, unfortunately, still a very, very dominant message within eating disorder treatment spaces, that remission and having it forever and, white knuckling it for the rest of your life is always going to be the only, possible best outcome. Which we just increasingly know is not the case. So I can understand if that's the context of your treatment and the advice that you're being given, then somebody telling you it's okay, you can keep pushing forward in recovery every day. And if you don't like it, or if it doesn't work for you, you can always go back to your eating disorder. If I heard that, my response would be, well, what the hell is the point of all of this? What are we doing this for, right? I can understand why people would be disheartened, demotivated, and feel hopeless about the process if their treatment providers or their support network are telling them that for the rest of their life, it's all right, you'll always have this thing hanging in the back of your head. And if you don't like recovery, then, just jump back into that headspace. It would really make the work it takes and the energy it takes and the commitment it takes feel like it was a really bad deal, right? All of this just to, you can always go back, you can always jump straight back in. I don't think that looks like a very appealing outcome. So therefore the advice in that context is pretty dark. So there's a few reasons why I share this sentiment with clients. First and foremost, it's the truth. My job as a coach, most importantly with clients, but also as an advocate, is to tell the truth, because that's what I'm demonstrating. It's the most powerful thing the healthy part of you has, is the truth, because the eating disorder self is really operating on fears and bad predictions and very often lies. So we need to, from a treatment perspective and from our own healthy self perspective, be relying on the truth as our most powerful strength, right? From a practical perspective, you can go back to your eating disorder. I've been recovered for many years at this point, and if I practically took the steps to reinforce my patterns, it would feel like literally torture. But if I was forced to, go back into all of my old patterns, that would essentially be me playing out an eating disorder, right? Being fully recovered, that is no longer appealing. My neural pathways have switched to the point where that is not my go-to by any means. I've disproved so many of those old beliefs and fears. Most importantly, those anxieties don't show up because they've been disproved over and over and over again. And the most crucial part being that I made the eating disorder redundant. I replaced what I was reaching out to it for with other things that were actually productive, constructive, helpful, and got me to the outcomes I wanted to get to, and not just the short-term relief. The second reason why I tell people they can always go back to their eating disorder is the empowering piece, which is that I cannot take this thing away from you. No one can take this thing away from you. It's what I love about being a coach the most, is that I am here to provide the framework, the guidance, the support, to be your biggest cheerleader. But as far as the action it takes and the choices, the incremental choices, and then resulting action it takes to get to the outcomes you want to get to, that is ultimately your choice. And it's reinforcing to people that they are the empowered ones. And given treatment settings have been set up to be fairly disempowering, that it is treatment versus patient, professional versus client, this approach tells you that every day you are essentially making that choice: recovery or eating disorder. Eating disorders are not a choice. The things you do every day, the challenges you put in front of yourself and attempt, the way you choose to respond to your thoughts, the way you choose to help seek and use your support system, the way you choose to invest your time each day, either for the purposes of where you want your life to be in a recovered sense versus where you will remain in an eating disorder sense, comes down to choices. So the most empowering thing you can do for someone is to tell them they have a choice. The third reason is kind of part of that making that choice process, which is kind of comforting them by telling them that they can go back to their eating disorder, by essentially reinforcing that this thing can't just be amputated, it can't just be taken away from them, that this is incremental. The way that I set up goals with clients has 3 components: flexible, incremental, and achievable. So we are building evidence incrementally. We are disproving eating disorder incrementally. We are building our coping skills and healthy outlets incrementally, so that desire to want to go back becomes redundant. We're not so much taking something away as making it unnecessary. So yeah, you can hold on to that idea that you can go back to your eating disorder until you reach the point where that isn't even required anymore. You don't need the comfort. I can't think of anything less comfortable than having an eating disorder, but I can understand that thought process. But eventually, the idea that you'd even want to hold on to the idea of it is so unnecessary and feels so alien and foreign. But it's okay to not hold on to the eating disorder, but to hold on to the notion that this is your choice, that can be your choice. But today, let's just work through what's in front of us. And tomorrow we'll do it again, and the next day, and the next day. And as your brain changes, as your fears subside, as your anxieties are proved totally wrong, and your life opens up, and your relationships open up, and your purpose becomes more apparent to you, and those feelings of true joy and accomplishment and connection start to come in, that need for that crutch dissipates. I don't sit here thinking, well, if life really goes terribly, I can always go back to my eating disorder. And guys, I've had some tests in 8 years, not for my eating disorder, but just life in general, and have never had a thought process pop up. It's an old neural pathway which has been just put out to pasture and isn't useful anymore. So it doesn't even bother, popping up in my brainwaves. That could be a solution or help me. I mean, I've had many life tests which have showed me that not only can the eating disorder no longer be a feature, but any desire to ever go back there is no longer a feature. They're my thoughts on how that one sentiment with 2 very different intentions, approaches, and belief systems can have such a different impact. As always, I would love to hear from you guys about whether or not that's been said to you, how you received it, how it was communicated, whether it has been helpful to you or unhelpful. Would love to hear your thoughts as usual. Make sure you come and check out the podcast if you've been missing the channel. Come and join us for the Conquer Your Eating Disorder Voice workshop. One of the greatest joys of my life is that workshop and seeing the difference it can make to people's, like I said, not just recoveries, but their lives. That's if there's tickets left. Please don't get angry at me if there aren't. I will see you guys in the next video. I'm off on holiday next week and going to the opening of Wanda Nerida, Australia's very first residential facility. Very, very, very honoured and proud to be attending that. And otherwise, I will see you on the channel in the next couple of weeks. Sending you a ton of love. Have missed you terribly. I will see you guys in the next one. In the meantime, much love. Take care. Bye, guys.